Forgiveness is an issue. Why? Because without understanding forgiveness, you and I are shackled by who we are. We're unallowing God to fulfill his desire in our life because somebody always owns a portion of our lives. So how do you know if you've forgiven people or not? Well, here's some telltale signs. If that person walked into the room today and you either got really sad or you got really angry, you probably realize that you haven't forgiven them. When you see them across the mall, whether you're walking one direction, you're walking the other, if you duck into the store, you probably haven't forgiven them. Or if you want to cross over and beat them up, you definitely have not forgiven them. If when the topic comes up, it still hurts and it's wounding, you know you have not forgiven them. When all your conversation is about that situation and that person, you know you haven't forgiven them. You see, we've had situations where my wife and I have offended, more her than me, but my wife and I have offended people. And then for years they talk about us. And it's like, I didn't realize I had that much power. But the fact is that I didn't have the power, but they never entered into forgiveness, so their life was still wrapped around the issue of what was not forgiven, and therefore, whether they liked it or not, they thought they were being nasty and mean and repelling me. They were actually keeping me in the forefront of their mind. So if you're talking about a situation on a constant basis, you're constantly talking about somebody who hurt you, you're constantly thinking about that person who hurt you, I'm telling you now, you have not forgiven them. Remember, we are Pentecostal. Are you out there? When you stop going places because they go there, you haven't forgiven them. We have had people say, well, I'm not coming back to his Tabernacle Family Church. And I said, well, why? Well, because so-and-so offended me. Then you haven't forgiven them. Turn to someone and say, forgiveness is not an option. When you're critical about everybody and everything, when you're cynical, you're always trying to find the worst out of a situation, you have not forgiven somebody, and it's polluted the rest of your life. Forgiveness, without it, you and I are debilitated. Forgiveness, without it, you and I cannot go ahead in our walk with Jesus. But not just that, you and I are stunted in the life that we live right here on this planet. God's passion is to set you free. I was praying about the message, and what you saw right here was so real. We'd like to thank Simmons and Rockwell for lending us the car. But with this husband and wife that were so angry when they got out of the car, they wanted a divorce. That was cool. All right. As I was praying about this message, I was saying, Lord, I really want to bring not just the fact of them having to forgive people, but I want to bring a reality of what this thing is all about. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me, and this is what he said. Unforgiveness is one of the greatest plots of Satan. You see, when he sinned, when he went against God in the book of Isaiah chapter 14, and he was thrown from the heavens down, there was no forgiveness for him. And what he strived to do when he got into the Garden of Eden, and they committed treason, they turned their backs on God, These people were created in the image of God. Genesis chapter 1 verse 26 says that God created man in his image and in his likeness. And Satan so despises anything that God has created good. That what happened was this, is that when he got them to turn away from God, when he got them to offend God, he was hoping that God would not forgive them. And therefore, God would have to change. You and I are sitting here today because God is a forgiver. Because God has chosen not to be like Satan. Because God has said, I will not be like and not live out what Satan desired to live. And that was a life of unforgiveness. God's hunger, God's passion is that we be restored and be one with our Father as he is one with us. But that can't happen if you're always offended. Come on, you see what happens? What happens when there's an offense? One goes out that door and one goes out that door. God's desire is that you never pass through the doors, but that you learn how to forgive. And when you learn how to forgive, you're going to be a person that even though when you get hurt, I said when you get offended, when it happens, that it doesn't need to destroy your life. Some of you have been so angry, unforgiving for so many years against somebody that realistically hurt you, wounded you, betrayed you, scarred you, molested you, turned against you. And the wound was so real and so powerful, but instead of being a person stepping into forgiveness, you held the grudge. You ever see The Grinch? I really wanted to show that video, but we don't have the copyright rules to show it. I really wanted to show the Grinch that stole Christmas. You know, you can see it, then all of a sudden his heart starts shrinking. And a person that enters into a life of unforgiveness is a person that starts to shrink. It's a person that on the outside, everything looks good, but inside your heart stops being supple. Your heart stops being sensitive to the Spirit of God. Your heart starts getting hard to people. You become critical about every situation and cynical about everybody and everything that's around you. And God is so desperately desiring to take your heart and bring it back to flesh, to breathe life back into you by bringing the principles of heaven to earth through you. That is forgiveness. Turn to someone and say, I'm going to learn how to forgive. I don't want to forgive, Pastor. Pastor Green, I don't want to forgive. I don't want them to get the upper hand in my life. I don't want them to think that I'm just a sissy and I can't stand up for myself. I don't want that. I am not going to forgive them no matter what they do, no matter what they say. I will not forgive. In your mind, you're thinking you've got control. The fact is, they've got control. What you're actually striving to do, you've actually done the opposite by not forgiving them. You've actually turned a life that you could have in freedom and peace. Come on now, everybody say, I love peace. Ladies, you know what every man wants. He wants peace. My wife and I, we get in the car, we're driving down the street, and I say, you're real quiet. She goes, I like peace. We all want peace. But the fact is this, is that if unforgiveness is in your heart, that person that you think you're holding captive, actually, they own you. They own your thoughts.